So then how do we understand this? It's interesting that we have these iconic figures, right? We have the mother, who has many afterlives, as we've discussed. So the Virgen Guadalupe is one of them, but the woman clothed in the sun, also often equated with Mary, the mother of Jesus, but understood as the Great Mother. Here in Revelation chapter 12, we have the whore of Babylon in Revelation 17 to 19, and then we have the bride from chapters 19 to 22, right? So this progression of events and these iconic figures that you can see patterned sometimes after other texts, obviously from Hebrew Bible and scriptures, and also with other ancient um, cults and beliefs and symbols, all at work, but centering around, right, these different understandings and constructions of a woman figure, right, depending on her social status is understood through her sexual status, whether she is pregnant about to give birth, or whether she is a prostitute, sex worker, whore, however you want to term it, who is fornicating, and also in a position of power, so ambivalent in the way that she's portrayed. And then the bride, who is supposed to be decorative, decorated, who is supposed to be virginal and pure, who is on the cusp of, right? And so presented in this wedding procession in a teleological story, ending right at that point of consummation, right? So you could see almost this entire story, right? Sexualized in a particular way. And I would say that I am not reading into it. The author himself, I assume a male, is presenting these visions cloaked and wrapped in the sexual constructions of his day, in this particular flow of the narrative, as much as a flow as there might be in something as bizarre as the book of Revelation, but ending with the wedding. So what's going to happen, right? We get to that point of consummation and then we end, right? And then we're told also to wait and to pray. So it's an interesting flow of thinking. If you think with gender and sex forefront of your mind, reading it, you pick up on these particular figures, these iconic figures throughout the text. One interesting thing to add to that, though, is why is the woman Babylon so ambivalent and such a figure of danger, right? Why this particular figure to represent Rome? There are many choices. Obviously, part of this is tradition. So we have in Hebrew Bible, in the prophets, also Isaiah talking about Babylon as a city woman. We also have a comparison of Nahum of Nineveh with a woman as well, and thinking about them in these particularly sexualized ways in the city woman. We also, of course, have prophets that are denouncing unfaithfulness as the unfaithful woman, right? So always playing around with adulterous women, pure woman, virginal woman as that metaphor around which correct worship, obedience, and following God's commandments revolve. So it's a disturbing, consistent metaphor that Revelation is borrowing from. I want to draw your attention, however, to Revelation chapter 18 and the condemnation of Babylon and the justification of her punishment. It is the voice in heaven says, "Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit enthroned as queen. I am not a widow. I will never mourn. Therefore, in one day her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her." This is related to and borrowed from Isaiah chapter 47. You said, this is Babylon, I am forever the eternal queen, but you did not consider these things or reflect on what might happen. And so there is a pride and an arrogance that's being condemned, an idea that you could have such power, such luxury, such wealth, and not account for God's judgment, right? Not account for justice, we might say, understanding of whatever disobedience, right, that might entail, of whether the captivity, exile, oppression, injustice that you are wreaking on others. So that's one part of it. But it's interesting also to focus on what she says, I am not a widow and I will never mourn, right? Signaling that she has not been married, right? She is ruling. She has not been married because the king has not died. The king never was, right? She's not a widow. And she also says, I will never mourn, meaning I will never marry, right? So this is a ambivalent figure as well in her sexual status as a ruler. She is not joined to a man. She will not become somebody's wife, right? She will not take part in that social contract, and she will continue to rule, she thinks, right, in this arrogance, in this powerful status and role that she has. And so that is destroyed. So it's disturbing to think of the ways that these things are turning around her exulting in her never being married. So we see echoes of that all over in different ancient texts and thinking about the role of women and the way that they become enmeshed in these different relationships and the way that those sexual relationships and social contracts are fetishized and created into metaphors in very particular ways, thinking about power and God's punishment, and to show particular punishment, right? The killing of her children, the burning of her flesh, the sexual assault, or being thrown on a bed like Jezebel. And you can also think of Jezebel, the queen, in the stories of Israel, in which she is basically chopped up to pieces and eaten by dogs, right? So these are not pleasant, easy stories, but the punishment for these women are graphically described and always seems to hinge upon their sexual status, right? So there's preoccupation that runs throughout Revelation in these particular ways.